today, let's talk about Remnants of a Separation by Aanchal Malhotra. So basically, the only reason that I'm making this video, making a video on Remnants of a Separation by Aanchal Malhotra is because it's not a mainstream book. Be it Indian booktube where this should be famous, or be it the international booktube community where people should be reading this book is not seen anywhere per se, except for quite a few stories. So as compared to the people on booktube or bookstagram, many people do read this book. I'm not going to deny it. Many people read it last year as well. But it's not as famous as it should be. And it is an important read that everyone should be aware about. And that's why this particular video is being made. So before I start with my thoughts about the book and why should you read it, let me just tell you what the book is about, right? So basically, this book is about the partition, and in this book, Aanchal Malhotra has sat down with quite a few people who've gone through the partition and tried to understand their experiences and penned those experiences down. And the more, but the part which she focuses more on is actually the objects that they carried from Pakistan to India or India to Pakistan while migrating. And it's an important piece of, I would say, partition literature, because most of partition literature is based on oral histories. And first thing, this compiles a lot of oral histories for you to read. And the second thing is that you kind of like get a feel of the objects, because if you read the physical copy, every chapter has the picture of the objects that these people carried along with them when they were migrating. And like, be it a shawl or be it a photograph or be it like a book, so there are a lot of things that are mentioned in the book, which is kind of I won't say it's it kind of gives you like a very good insight into what these people went through and why they carried what they carried, because you are being driven away from your own homes, you are running away from your own homes, and you were escaping violence, riots, because on both the sides the respective religions were attacking those of the other religions. So yeah, and that's why this is an important book to read. But let me just convince you a bit more and also tell you maybe like one problematic thing about the book, although it's not like a problem, but then I think it's worth the discussion. So why should you read the book, right? What do I love about the book? I love the raw, sensitive nature of the book, because what Aanchal Malhotra did actually was she went to the houses of these individuals. She sat down with them and she started discussing their life in their life across the border, and they started discussing how was it at their how was the situation in their homes, how who were their parents, and many of the people who had come from Pakistan to India were generally like zamindars, or it was mainly about, they were like pretty well off people, to be honest, those that are mentioned in the book, that is. And how they had to leave a lot of things, not only material possessions, but that kind of feeling that this is our homeland, or this is our this is the earth that we have in our palms, right? I think this is more I would say a bit more patriotic when you speak Hindi. जो मिट्टी होती है वो छू लेते हैं, पकड़ लेते हैं, that kind of feeling, right? And the thing is that it's very important, because when she writes, she kind of like also tries to write in the native language they are talking in. For example, there's a story of East Pakistan to East Pakistan is currently called Bangladesh, by the way. So when they were moving from Bangladesh to Bengal, that is in India, how things were, and how it's just that many of the people during that time, they just thought that it was a temporary thing, right? Because the border that was drawn was supposed to be like a free flowing thing. Little did people know that there would be so much violence, and even if there was a lot of violence, then it should be a lot of people who decided to draw the border or per se decided that they wanted a border, that should be blamed upon. And it was a very political decision, like, right? The partition was a very political decision. And this book explores ground experiences of many people's lives, right? And if you've never read about the partition before, or if you have never read non-fiction literature on the partition, this is a great book to start with. I think that a lot of people might have already read quite a few famous books, like maybe Train to Pakistan, or I don't know, like other books that have been written on the partition, which talks about the whole situation in a fictional format, of course inspired by real life events. But the reason why this book is different is because, first thing, it's kind of like easy to get into. The storytelling factor of the book and the writing of the book is very good. So it does not actually feel like a non-fiction book. It's just that your grandmother or your grandfather is sitting with you and telling you their story. Okay, so the whole book is of course written in a third person format, and there are like various stories in the book. There are actually, so this is the latest paperback version. If you read this when this came out, then there are 2 chapters missing. And, oh, and by the way, I have a signed copy here, so just showing off. But anyway, let me tell you. Yep, so basically it has about, it has 21 chapters basically. And if you have the older version, that's the hardback version, there were only 19 chapters in that. There are 2 more chapters added in it. So I highly recommend you read the 20th and 21st one as well. And my favorite chapter in the whole book is the 20th one, because the object or the material discussed here is a sword. Okay, I'm not going to give you anything else because those would be spoilers, but this is an important book on the partition and everyone should read it, especially if you are looking for non-fiction partition literature but you're intimidated and do not know where to start. This is the book. And another thing I really like is there are pictures also given in this book. So you can relate, to the whole situation. You can kind of relate to it. So like someone got scissors from across the border, and someone got a sword. Someone got, I think, a shawl. Yeah, someone got utensils, because basically when you are migrating, you do not know the situation of your food. So if you get some grains, maybe you can cook some rice, or maybe you can grind flour, basically flour. Anyway, you get like wheat grains and you can make flour with it. Flour. I'm sorry, my brain's broken right now. Anyway, ignore me. But anyway, so basically like objects like these. And also some people got like clothing items, maybe like a shawl, or maybe something that's like a thick blanket that's very specific to Punjab per se. I cannot recollect the name, but that being said, you get my gist, right? I'm convincing you to read the book. So if you are someone who's looking forward to read more about the partition and kind of like open to discussing it, then this is the book that you should be reading. So now let's talk about like the thing that kind of I won't say it's a bad thing. I won't say it's a good thing as well. I would just say that it's kind of a thing that you need to keep in mind when you read the book, and that is that this book contains a lot of stories of people who could actually carry items along with them when crossing the border. Okay, and it's important to note that more than 500,000 people were just running away from their homes. They couldn't carry anything. The mob had kind of reached their homes and they had to just flee because the house was being set on fire or the women were being kidnapped. So they just had to run away from that place. Okay, and that is heartbreaking. So basically they couldn't carry anything that's like a memento or something that they could carry along with them and then later on do something with it. So the book kind of does come from a place of privilege. It does have like some sort of privilege, or I won't say privilege, I would say there were many people who were unlucky and they couldn't carry anything, and many people lost a lot of relatives, people in the violence. Many women were kidnapped, and many women were kidnapped, married off, converted, and sexually assaulted. So it's a very heartbreaking thing. So yeah, like, but from what I know, from what I understand, this is something that we had a discussion on Clubhouse the other day, that Anchal Malhotra's next book will kind of cover the I think it's called Remnants of a Remembering. That's what I remember from the talk, and she's working on that next book, which kind of talks about stories of people who actually crossed the border and have had horrendous bad experiences. And it's kind of important to remember an event like this, right? A tragic event like this needs to be remembered, and it's an integral part of Indian history. So it's important that you even read it, basically. So yeah, I think that would be, I don't want to use the word problematic. I would say that it should be something that should be acknowledged per se, because not many people were as lucky as the others who did have the means, or the possibility of carrying some form of luggage, or some form of object around to remember their old home. So that being said, of course, this is a full 5 from my side. The rating is like a full 5, okay? But again, let me just reiterate this. If you are an Indian, or if you are someone who wants to learn about the partition, of course, this should be a book that you have to read, okay? There are a lot of books other than this. I've already ordered a lot of them, especially Partition Voices, because Anshul herself had recommended this on her Clubhouse talk. Then quite a few books that are coming in for me, especially non-fiction, partition books. And another important thing to remember is that you won't get all the information in one single book, right? You have to even read like a few bad books in order to understand the partition. For me, this bad book was The Lost Homestead by Marina Wheeler, who is the ex-wife of the current Prime Minister of the UK, Boris Johnson. And Marina Wheeler's mother, she was Indian, and she also had to leave her house at she was based in Sargodha, and she had to move to Delhi because of the partition. Now, although that is a very, very whitewashed British account of the partition, I didn't like that book at all, right? But it's important that I read that book, because through that book I got to know a lot of things that I kind of would not have otherwise. On basically, she had visited the British Council library, I think, and she had taken a lot of archives from there, understanding a lot of things that happened 20 years prior to the partition. So I won't say that one book has it all, okay? This is one of the places that you actually go ahead and start to learn about the partition. But then the more you move forward, the more you read, the more you kind of have a perspective. And this book, Remnants of a Separation, gives you a very nuanced perspective on the partition itself. So yeah, that's all I had to say in this video. It's a heartbreaking book. Please keep tissues ready. But more importantly, it is an important book that you have to read in order to understand what did people go through this tragic time. Okay, it's an important book for everybody. And more importantly, what really irks me at times is how, in the West, especially in the UK, you don't teach colonialism in schools, right? And honestly, I think that's the thing with every government per se. There are many governments who censor such topics in the textbooks, but you kind of learn about it later in life. And I think same thing kind of with the partition here, because the government tells you about the partition, the school textbooks tell you about the partition, but then they don't explain the reason of the partition, or they don't explain what happened, what all events happened leading to the partition. So yeah, that's that. I hope you read the book. I hope you enjoy it. and I ordered my copy from Bhari Sons. So if you're looking out for a signed copy, you can go ahead, order from Bhari Sons. Yes, that's how I got my signed copy. Bhari Sons is a book, an independent bookshop based in Delhi, and it was started by the author's grandfather once he migrated to India, and it's still running successfully. So kudos to that. And that being said, this is it for the video. If you've read the book and liked it, please let us discuss. If you've not read the book yet, I highly recommend you go and read it. Okay? Thank you so much for watching. I will see you on my next video.